Hi, and welcome to Reddit Confessions. This story doesn't start with love. It starts with a frying pan. And a blueberry pancake. That's how the morning began, my hand trembling while flipping her pancake too early, the blueberries bleeding purple like bruises across the batter. It tore in half. So did I, in a way. She sat behind me in silence, scrolling her phone like she was trying to swipe her way into a different life. I placed the plate in front of her. She didn't say thank you. She didn't look up. She just said, "You know. I could walk out that door today and not look back." That was the first bite of the day. No preface. No warning. Just that. Flat and cold, like the butter melting on her fork. I thought it was a test. Some weird psychological experiment I didn't sign up for. So I gave her a small, dry laugh and said something like, "That's dramatic, even for you." She didn't laugh. She kept scrolling. That's when I realized it wasn't a test. It was a forecast. And the storm was coming for me. The worst part about being threatened with abandonment isn't the fear. It's the preparation. It's brushing your teeth next to someone who's already mentally moved out. It's washing their coffee cup knowing they're sipping while plotting an escape. It's hearing, "I love you," as a reflex, not a belief. I wanted to fix it. God, did I want to fix it. But every time I reached for her, emotionally or physically, she leaned just slightly away. Like I was static. Or wallpaper. Or worse, an inconvenience. One evening, after she worked late again, I noticed a red mark on her shoulder. Lipstick-shaped. Lipstick-colored. Not hers. I didn't say a word. Instead, I stood in the garage with the laundry basket, staring at her favorite hoodie. I pressed it to my face, hoping it still smelled like her. It didn't. It smelled like cologne. Something woody. Masculine. Not mine. She was already halfway gone. But she hadn't expected what came next. Because the next morning, I did what no one expects from a man like me, quiet, apologetic, the type who says sorry when someone bumps into him. I gave her what she wanted. She came downstairs, hair in a messy bun, probably thinking about which lie she'd tell next. And there on the kitchen table was her packed bag, her toothbrush, her slippers, and her favorite mug with a note inside. "You wanted the door open. I just removed the hinges." She looked at me like I'd punched her in the throat. But I said nothing. And I swear to you, for one beautiful second, her bravado cracked. But this was only the beginning. Because you can hand someone the exit. And still control everything they trip over on the way out. When I say she didn't speak for 11 minutes, I mean I counted. 11 minutes of stunned silence as she stood there, holding the note I left in her favorite mug, the one with the chipped rim she insisted had personality. I stood by the sink, pretending to dry a plate that was already dry. She read the note once. Then again. Then folded it neatly like it was something sacred. "You're serious?" she finally asked, voice so low it almost got lost in the hum of the refrigerator. "I'm not stopping you," I replied, still staring at the dish towel like it had all the answers. Tessa didn't cry. That was what scared me. She just blinked slowly, then sat down at the kitchen table, exactly where she'd told me 24 hours earlier that she could walk out and never look back. And for the first time in a long time, she actually looked at me. I mean really looked. But I don't think she saw me. I think she saw an ending she thought she'd be in control of, and suddenly realized she wasn't. She left later that morning. No yelling. No door slam. She just took her bag and walked out into the early fog like someone heading to an airport without a ticket. And still, I didn't stop her. I just stood in the window and watched her toss the bag into the back seat of her car. She didn't look back once. But before she reached the end of the street, I picked up my phone. Not to call her. To call a locksmith. By noon, the locks were changed. Her key, the one with the tiny sunflower charm, now useless. That night, I sat in our house alone for the first time in nearly a decade. The silence didn't hurt like I expected. It was almost soothing. No forced small talk. No passive-aggressive sighs. No walking on eggshells wondering what version of her would come through the door next. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened the guest bedroom closet. Her closet. The one where she kept the things I don't need but can't throw away. It was like a time capsule for a life we stopped living. There were old photo strips from a boardwalk trip, a dusty jewelry box with a necklace I gave her on our first Christmas, a wrinkled drawing of a house plan we sketched after too many glasses of wine. We dreamed of building it someday, back when someday still meant something. But shoved behind it all was what stopped my heart. A second phone. Dead. But not hidden well enough. Now, I'm not proud of this, but I drove straight to the gas station at 11:45 p.m. and bought a charger. By midnight, it powered on. What I saw on that phone turned everything I thought I knew into fiction. Conversations. Photos. Voice memos. Private videos. Names I'd never heard before. Faces I had, some of them friends. People who'd smiled at me at parties, asked about my job, complimented Tessa's cooking. There was one group chat titled, Freedom Weekend Party Popper. Messages said things like, "You sure Everett won't freak if you disappear for a few days? That man wouldn't freak if you set his sweater collection on fire. Girl, you're finally living. Don't look back. Don't forget to delete this LOL." She didn't. And I didn't delete it either. Instead, I backed everything up. And I started making a list, not a petty one, but a detailed one. Times. Names. Places. A quiet timeline of disloyalty. Because the thing about being the kind of man people underestimate, is that when you finally act, no one sees it coming. There's something strange about silence when it stretches too long. It doesn't feel like peace, it feels like a warning. The kind of silence that makes your skin itch. That's how the house felt after Tessa left. The first 2 days were numb. I told people she was visiting her sister. I kept washing dishes for 2. I even found myself folding the laundry she left behind like she'd be back on Sunday, maybe with a souvenir candle and a half-hearted apology. But she didn't come back Sunday. Or Monday. And by Tuesday, I realized something no one prepares you for. When someone decides to erase you, they don't always make it loud. Sometimes they just vanish and let the quiet do the rest. Except I wasn't going to disappear. Not anymore. The second phone, her secret portal to the life she was living when I was at work, folding towels, waiting for leftovers to reheat, became my window into the truth. And the truth was uglier than I thought possible. Tessa wasn't just having an affair. She was running a parallel life. Hotel meetups. Dinner dates under fake names. There were selfies of her in outfits I never saw, at restaurants I'd only driven past. There was even a short video of her giggling while some guy poured her champagne. She called him Mark with a C in her contacts. I scrolled so far back, I found messages from 2 years ago. 2 years. That meant she looked me in the eye every day, kissed me goodbye, told me I was her safe place, while living like she was single in another zip code. It wasn't just betrayal. It was performance. And then I found something that didn't fit, a receipt for a storage unit. Paid 6 months in advance. In her name, but using her work address. Why would she need storage? I didn't wait. I drove across town that same evening, heart pounding in my throat like a drumline. I told the clerk I was her husband, that she'd asked me to pick something up. He didn't question it. I guess I looked like the harmless type. I signed in, took the keycard, and walked down a dim hallway to Unit 117. When I opened it, I expected old furniture. Maybe clothes. But no. Inside was, our life. Or more specifically, the life we used to have. Wedding photos, boxes labeled, first house, gifts from our anniversary, framed art I thought she'd thrown away in a garage sale. She'd taken our memories and stuffed them in a box like they were something shameful. But there was something else. A black leather duffel bag. Heavy. Inside, passports. One hers, one brand new, issued under the name, Tessa Reese. Not our last name. And 2 printed plane tickets. One was to Costa Rica, dated 2 weeks from now. The other was a return ticket, just one. Hers. Not mine. That's when it hit me. She wasn't leaving me. She was escaping me. With someone else. It all made sense now. The vague comments. The silence. The testing. She wanted me to push her out so she didn't have to do the dirty work. And I had. I'd handed her the door with a quiet dignity that she mistook for weakness. But now the rules were different. Because she had planned everything except for one thing. Me. She didn't know I had the second phone. She didn't know I found the storage unit. She didn't know that while she was off pretending to be someone else, I was waking up, finally. And I wasn't just going to sit quietly anymore. So I took the bag. I left the storage unit empty, swept clean like it had never held a thing. On the way home, I stopped by my cousin's law office. She owed me a favor. She also happened to be a brutal divorce attorney with a mean streak and a photographic memory. I told her everything. She just nodded once and said, "We'll make this surgical." And then, almost as an afterthought, she added, "She's going to regret underestimating you." And for the first time in a long, long time, I believed it. It's funny how, when you stop begging to be seen, people start watching. After I left the storage unit cleaned out and the bag tucked safely in my garage under a pile of junk she never cared to sort, something shifted inside me. It wasn't revenge. Not yet. It was more like clarity. I'd spent the past 3 years apologizing for being a man she slowly decided wasn't enough, quiet, predictable, simple. But it wasn't that I was weak. It was that I was considerate. And people like Tessa mistake consideration for passivity. She had no idea I'd been paying attention the entire time. 3 days passed without a single message from her. Not a text, not a missed call. Like I didn't exist. But I saw her, Mark with AC, posted a story of them drinking cocktails on some rooftop bar. Tessa was in the background, laughing, dancing, holding up a peace sign. Wearing a dress I bought her last Christmas. She'd told me she returned it because it didn't fit her anymore. I remember how I believed her. Like an idiot. But now I had everything I needed, her second phone, the timeline, the storage unit evidence, and her getaway plan. And so, I started preparing something she never thought I was capable of. I started withdrawing from our joint savings account. Small amounts. Just enough to avoid red flags. I rerouted my paycheck to a new bank. Closed all shared credit cards. And I moved the valuable items, my laptop, my grandfather's watch, the documents she didn't even remember existed, to a safe at my cousin's firm. At night, I'd lay in our too-quiet house, staring at the ceiling, rehearsing conversations with her that I would never actually have. The kind where I'd finally say everything I wanted, except I knew she didn't deserve that closure. What she deserved, was to face the consequences of living like I was too soft to act. And then came the email. She sent it at 3:12 a.m., subject line blank, message body just one line. "I'll be stopping by tomorrow to grab a few things. Hope that's okay." She didn't even ask. She informed me. Like I was the concierge of a hotel she once stayed in. I didn't reply. Instead, I spent that morning doing something deeply satisfying. I cleaned. Scrubbed. Vacuumed. Not for her, not for show. For me. I took down the framed wedding photo in the hallway and replaced it with a piece of abstract art I bought on impulse the day after she left. I threw away her cereal. I reprogrammed the thermostat to my comfort level. It wasn't about being petty. It was about reclaiming space I forgot belonged to me. When she walked in that afternoon, she looked surprised. Not shocked, Tessa never let herself look vulnerable, but definitely off balance. Her hair was done. Lipstick on. The same performance polish she wore on her first dates. She didn't even glance at me. Just started walking toward the stairs with that breezy fake casual tone. "I'll just be 10 minutes, she said. I nodded and followed her up, but she didn't notice. Or didn't care. She opened our closet, now just my closet, and blinked at the emptiness. Half her clothes were gone. The hangers rearranged. Her shoes weren't there. She turned toward the dresser and opened the top drawer where she kept her jewelry. Also empty. That's when she turned around and saw me leaning on the doorframe. "I brought everything to the unit," I said calmly. "But you already knew that, didn't you?" Her mouth twitched. "What do you mean?" I held up the second phone. Color drained from her face. "This?" I said. "This little window into your alternate life?" She stared at it like it was radioactive. I think, in that moment, she still wasn't sure how much I knew. So I clarified. "I know about the second passport. I know about Costa Rica. I know about Mark. I know about the storage unit. I know you were planning to leave without telling me, to disappear, and I was supposed to just keep living in the shell you left behind." She opened her mouth to say something, I have no idea what, and I cut her off. "I also know that the savings account is now empty. That your little travel plan?" "Yeah. That's not happening anymore." "You're bluffing," she said. But her voice was flat. I handed her the envelope, copies of everything, the emails, the messages, the flight confirmations, even a screenshot of Mark's LinkedIn profile. "No, Tessa. For the first time in our marriage. I'm not bluffing. And neither is my lawyer." Her hand trembled as she took the envelope, eyes darting from page to page. Then she did something I didn't expect. She laughed. But it was short. Hollow. "You think you've won," she said. "You think this makes you strong?" I didn't answer. I just stepped aside and motioned toward the front door. She didn't leave right away. She stood there for a while, like she was trying to decide whether to yell or cry or run. But in the end, she just walked out without another word. This time. I didn't watch her go. The days after she left felt eerily calm. Not peaceful, but still. Like the kind of silence that settles right before the sky splits open with thunder. And even though I'd told myself I was done, even though I'd handed her the door and watched her walk through it with a bag full of lies, I couldn't stop waiting for the next hit. Because Tessa was never the kind of woman to just vanish quietly. She was the storm that circled back. I changed everything. My locks. My bank credentials. My attorney made sure a temporary freeze was placed on the assets she hadn't gotten her hands on yet. I shut down every point of access she once had to my life. And I did it all while sitting in the same living room we used to share, staring at the throw pillows she picked out, wondering how much of our marriage had been real and how much was just choreography. But then, on the fourth night after she'd left, something happened that I hadn't prepared for. I got a phone call from an unknown number. I didn't answer the first time. Or the second. But on the third, curiosity won. I picked up and said nothing. Just listened. There was breathing. Then, her voice. "Everett. I made a mistake. I didn't say anything." She continued, "I thought I could handle it. I thought I could start over. But I can't. He's not who I thought he was. I closed my eyes, clenched the phone tighter. He? I asked, finally breaking the silence. Mark, she whispered. He's not, he lied. He's married. With kids. I didn't know. And now his wife found out and everything's a mess. I cut her off. Why are you telling me this? There was a long pause on her end, and then the line cracked slightly. Because I thought you'd care. That hit harder than I expected. I don't know why. Maybe because some part of me still hadn't fully accepted just how hollow she had become. Or maybe I was angry that she thought, after everything, I was still her safety net. But I wasn't. You burned the bridge, Tessa, I said. I'm not standing on the other side waiting for you to come back. I don't want to come back, she said too quickly, too rehearsed. I need to get some things. Important things. And there it was. The reason she called. Not for me. For the things. I told her I wasn't home, but that if she came by, I'd leave the bag on the porch. And I did. I placed the black duffel bag, the same one from the storage unit, right outside the door and locked it. Inside, I left everything she'd hidden there, untouched. But I added something else. Something small. Something symbolic. A flash drive. It held everything I'd backed up from her second phone. The messages, the photos, the voice recordings. Everything she thought she'd buried. 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang. I didn't go to the door. I just watched from the upstairs window as she picked up the bag, unzipped it, and froze when she saw the drive. She stood there for maybe 30 seconds, then slowly zipped it closed, turned around, and walked back to her car. No knock. No yelling. Just a quiet, defeated walk to the driver's side like someone realizing their own game had just been turned against them. She hadn't even made it out of the neighborhood before she called again. This time I didn't pick up. Because I was done. Or at least, I thought I was, until 2 days later, a man showed up at my front door. Early 50s. Salt and pepper hair. Nervous energy. He held a manila envelope in one hand and introduced himself as Eric. And he said 9 words that flipped everything upside down again. I think I'm married to the woman you divorced. There are a few moments in your life where time doesn't just stop, it shatters. You know the ones. A car crash. A diagnosis. A wedding vow you now realize was just a script. This was one of those moments. Eric stood on my porch in a windbreaker that had seen better days, his fingers trembling slightly as he held out that envelope like it was radioactive. His words were still echoing in my head. I think I'm married to the woman you divorced. I didn't invite him in. I couldn't. I just stepped out onto the porch, closed the door behind me, and leaned on the railing like I might fall through the floor if I didn't hold on to something solid. What do you mean? I asked, voice rough. He gave a weak laugh, but it wasn't funny. My wife's name is Marissa. Or at least that's what she told me. But last week I found a hidden folder on our shared laptop. And in that folder was a plane ticket, under the name Tessa Everett. Your name. A different address. A photo of you two at some lake house, and messages from a phone I didn't even know she owned. One of them said your name. I said nothing. Just stared. Eric shook his head. I thought I was losing my mind. I hired someone. A pie. I told him to find out if this Everett person was real. If the address matched. And here I am. I was trying to breathe normally, but every breath felt like I was swallowing broken glass. How long have you two been married? I finally asked. 6 years, he said, eyes darting away. We met on a volunteer trip in Colorado. She said she was a widow, rebuilding her life. She always traveled for work. Said she worked in high-level medical logistics, explained all the hotel stays, the late calls. She even had documents. I never questioned her. My mouth went dry. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. But I just asked the one thing that terrified me the most. Do you have kids? He winced, like I'd just punched him. A daughter. 4 years old. But, and then he hesitated, she might not be mine. We stood there on that porch in a silence that screamed. Two strangers connected by a woman who had carefully, deliberately built her life like a house of mirrors. Everything duplicated, reflected, fractured just enough that no one could see the whole truth unless you knew exactly where to look. Eric handed me the envelope. There's more. Photos. Messages. Voice notes. I figured, if she lied to both of us, then maybe together we could piece together what she was doing. Who she really is. I took it. Not because I needed more proof, but because I needed closure. He started to walk back to his car, then turned back and said something I haven't stopped thinking about since. She told me she hated weakness. Said it made her feel trapped. I think she saw us both as weak. And I think she loved the control that gave her. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor of my living room surrounded by those pages, her handwriting, her plane tickets, her split lives. I listened to voicemails she'd left him that mirrored the ones she used to leave me. She called him, honey. She called me, babe. She told both of us she was grateful for the quiet life we gave her. And yet, she had built chaos behind the curtain. But somewhere in that pile, I found something new. A receipt for a private mailbox in a different town. An address I'd never seen before. It was recent. Paid up front. 6 months. I couldn't stop myself. I drove out there the next morning, hands shaking on the wheel the entire time. The mailbox was real. The key from her duffel bag fit. And inside? A birth certificate. For a child. A boy. No father listed. The mother's name. Tessa Reese. I staggered back like I'd been shot. I didn't know if it was real. I didn't know if it was recent. But I knew, in that moment, the woman I had married didn't just betray me emotionally or romantically. She had built an entire network of lies spanning cities, years, and lives. This wasn't infidelity. This was identity fraud. Psychological warfare. Double lives layered on top of each other like sediment. But now, finally, the weight of what she'd done was cracking. Because hours after I found that certificate, I got another call. This time from an unknown woman. Her voice was hoarse, terrified. She whispered, "Is your name Everett? I think I'm engaged to your wife." I didn't even have time to process the birth certificate when my phone rang again. I almost didn't pick up. I was still sitting in my car outside the private mailbox facility, staring at that folded document like it might disappear if I blinked too long. But I answered anyway. Curiosity, maybe. Or just that stubborn, exhausted part of me that still couldn't look away from the slow-motion car crash my life had become. Her voice was quiet, but fast. Nervous. Panicked. "Is your name Everett? Everett Miles?" I said yes, already bracing. She didn't introduce herself. Just rushed forward like the words had been waiting for days. I think I'm engaged to your wife. Or your ex-wife. I don't know anymore. Her name's Tessa. Or Marissa. I don't even know if that's real. I found your name in her old emails. I went looking because I just found out she lied about something huge. She said she'd never been married before. But I found a prenup. With your name on it. She kept it in a hidden zip folder labeled tax documents. Why would she keep that? I couldn't even feel my fingers. When's the wedding? Next Saturday, she whispered. In Utah. At a winery. She sent me the website. It was real. The venue. The date. The guest list. I even found a photo of them on the homepage. There she was, Tessa, smiling, hand on this poor woman's waist, looking like the same charming, luminous fraud she'd been with me. She told me she was raised in Europe. Said she was estranged from her family. I believed her. She's so convincing. But then I noticed things didn't line up. She said she was a nurse, but I've never seen her go to work. She said she had no siblings, but once I saw a message from someone named Eric, and when I asked, she got cagey. Now I think she's done this before. Multiple times. I didn't know what to say. I felt like the universe had turned inside out. This wasn't just a betrayal of love. It was something darker. Organized. Patterned. Predatory. She's not just a liar, I muttered. She's a collector. Of lives. What should I do? The woman asked, and I could hear tears in her throat. Do I cancel the wedding? Do I go to the police? I should have told her to run. To cancel everything. But instead, something cold and sharp rose inside me. An idea. No, I said slowly. You go through with it. Just don't sign anything. Don't say, I do. Let her believe she's won. Let her walk down that aisle with all her masks still on. And then, let's take them off all at once. Silence. Then, you want me to trap her? No, I said. She already did that to all of us. This isn't a trap. This is a reveal. That night, I called Eric. Told him everything. Sent him the wedding info. Then I opened my laptop and created a new email under a fake name. I reached out to 3 other people I suspected were connected to her, thanks to hints buried in old messages, tagged photos, flight stubs, and receipts. 2 replied. Both said they'd been involved with her in the last 2 years. One had lived with her for 6 months. The other said he only ever saw her in hotels and assumed she was just emotionally unavailable. I asked them to meet me on a Zoom call. We shared stories. Lined up dates. Realized she had been juggling up to 4 men at once, and not just romantically. Financially. Emotionally. She had entire personalities for each of us. With one, she was a grieving widow. With another, a nomadic consultant. With me, a woman rebuilding her life after a miscarriage, someone who wanted simple peace and security. We started to understand the scale of it. Tessa wasn't chaotic. She was methodical. Her lies weren't born out of panic, they were planned. She knew how to manipulate empathy, how to weave half-truths into full trust. And all of us, at some point, had handed her our vulnerability like it was a gift. She treated it like currency. So we made a plan. Not for revenge. For truth. One of the men, Devon, offered to fly to Utah. He said he'd sit in the back row. Eric agreed to come too. The woman who'd called me, the almost fiancée, said she'd walk down that aisle in her dress, stand at the altar, and when the officiant asked if she took this woman as her lawfully wedded wife, she'd say, I don't. But I know 3 other people here who have. And then, she'd step aside. And Tessa would see all of us. Standing. Watching. Waiting. Not weak. Not broken. Just done playing her game. The wedding day arrived on a Saturday morning wrapped in sunshine. The venue was beautiful, almost offensively so, rows of vineyards stretching into the hills, white chairs arranged perfectly under strings of lights, a violinist softly playing near the arbor. No one in the crowd suspected anything. To them, it was a celebration of love. Another, new beginning. For Tessa, it was a carefully choreographed performance, another act in her twisted play. The final scene, if she had her way. But she had no idea the audience had changed. Eric sat in the second row, his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles had gone white. Devon was in the back, leaning against a pillar, sunglasses on but heart wide open. And me? I stood behind the floral archway, hidden, waiting. I wasn't there to expose her with rage. I didn't come to yell or shame her. I came to witness what happens when the truth finally arrives, unapologetically, undeniably, and with perfect timing. She walked down the aisle in a white gown I'm sure someone else paid for, wearing a smile I used to believe in. She looked at her fiancé like she was the first person she'd ever loved. But even from a distance, I could see the smallest crack forming at the corner of her mouth. She sensed something was off. The woman beside her wasn't smiling back. The officiant cleared his throat and began the vows. Then came the question. Do you, Marissa Reese, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded spouse? I don't. The words echoed louder than any yes could have. Gasps. Tessa blinked. Confused. She laughed nervously, thinking maybe it was a joke. But the woman turned to her and said clearly, I know you've said those same vows to others. They're probably here today. And that's when Eric stood up. Then Devon. Then me. We didn't need to say a word. We just stepped into the aisle one by one. And for the first time since I'd met her, I saw Tessa speechless. Her face drained of color. Her hands dropped to her sides. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came. Just a tiny, stuttering breath. She turned. She walked away. Not fast. Not slow. Just gone. No dramatic exit. No closing statement. Just the quiet unraveling of a woman who had finally run out of masks. What happened next? Well, the woman she tried to marry filed a report. Eric took custody of their daughter. And I went home. No rage. No sadness. Just this calm clarity that I'd survived something most people wouldn't believe unless they lived it. But here's the thing, I don't regret loving her. Because what she gave me, in her own twisted way, was freedom. I found out who I was when I had nothing left to give. I realized that being soft doesn't mean being stupid. And that strength doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes, it's just quietly standing up, after you've been knocked down so many times, even the floor forgot your name. Today, I live in a small town a few hours from where it all happened. I adopted a rescue dog. I started painting, of all things. And last week, for the first time in years, I went on a date. Her name's Caroline. She laughs with her whole face. She doesn't talk about forever, just asks if I want coffee after the movie. And that's enough. So to everyone listening, if you've ever been the one left, betrayed, or made to feel invisible, let this be your reminder. You are not weak. You are not disposable. And you are not alone. Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions. If you've ever lived through something as wild, painful, or just plain unbelievable as this, drop your story in the comments. Let's turn this space into something honest, raw, and supportive. And if you made it this far, subscribe for more stories you won't hear anywhere else. Sometimes the best revenge is simply rebuilding better.